Oh,
Hello, this is Matthew Robert Payne. This is another interview with Michael Jackson, John Lennon, and Benjamin Toulouse Johnson, who's with us here, husband who passed on to heaven about 11 months ago. So, first, we're going to ask Michael Jackson 6 questions, then we're going to ask John Lennon 6 questions, and then we're going to ask Toulouse's husband, Ben, 6 questions. So it shouldn't be long. I
no,
don't
it shouldn't.
envisage their answers being very long, but for those of you who are following the continuing stories of these men in heaven, it should be quite interesting for you to listen to. So this video is part of a playlist called Mentoring in the Heavenlies, and you can find that playlist on my YouTube homepage, and it has about 100 videos of interviews with saints, and it would be enjoyable for you to listen to the whole playlist or just select uh, videos and select interviews with different saints that have passed on since biblical times or more recent times. So we'll start with Toulouse asking the first question of Michael Jackson, and I'll bring the voice of each of the saints.
Hello, Michael. How are you today?
I'm really good, Toulouse. It's good to catch up with you. I speak to Matthew nearly every night as he goes to sleep, but I don't imagine you're used to me speaking to you all the time.
No, but I've missed speaking to you guys. But I've been really busy, and Matthew has been as well. So my first question is, what has been your focus on music in the last few weeks that we've spoken?
So since we spoke last, uh, we've uh, we've been writing uh, a number of songs on uh, fellowshipping in the sufferings of Jesus, and for those people who haven't heard videos by us before, is fellowshipping in the sufferings of Jesus is writing about an understanding of how Jesus actually feels, how he's actually thinking, how he's processing, watching all the painful things on earth and all the sufferings on earth. And the sufferings on earth actually make Jesus suffer. They cause him real pain. Many atheists will ask you, how can God allow suffering on earth? And if he's a loving God, then the fact is that suffering happens on earth because mankind has got free will and mankind choose to do evil, and God allows mankind to have free will, so they're not robots. But the suffering on earth does cause Jesus to suffer, and he's also quite lonely. Hasn't got many people who understand him. It says in Proverbs, with much wisdom comes much sorrow, and because Jesus possesses an extraordinary amount of wisdom, he's sorrowful and sad and quite depressed a lot of the times. And so John Lennon, we collaborated with John Lennon and started to write some songs on the sufferings of Jesus, and heaven came to understand, and Jesus has started to make more friends in heaven. We've also been writing pop songs and love
Mhm.
songs for contemporary artists on earth, and we've been able to study their lives and understand their lives, and uh, in intuitively have them intuitively understand them and write a song about their former lover or their former partner and compose a song and then intuitively give the song to the artist so that they release the song, and it's heaven's song, but it's the artist's actual song, and they'll be really shocked one day if they get to heaven and realize that me and Ben had written a song for them. So John is focusing on the sufferings of Jesus, and we're collaborating with him on those songs. And me and Ben are focusing on the pop songs and the love songs, releasing them to earth. And then John is collaborating with what we come up with. So we've got multifaceted um, angles that we're working on, and also Benjamin is doing a lot of collaborating with other artists about songs that they want to produce. So of course, throughout the whole way, Delight, Ben's musical angel, is also helping write lyrics and helping arranging music for us. So that's my answer to that question.
That's very interesting. You guys are really, really busy doing a lot of good and great things in heaven as well, which I believe has been impacting Jesus' life in a positive way as well. The next question I've got here is, I think you've covered it already in your first answer, but I would still like to know that what are some of the topic of the songs that you guys have been releasing?
So John has been releasing songs and mainly writing songs about intimacy with Jesus and fellowshipping in the sufferings of Jesus, because there's a huge gap. There's a huge knowledge gap about how Jesus actually feels, and
Mm.
up until recently, people of heaven didn't really understand Jesus in a deep level, and because of the songs and because of the popularity of the songs that me and Benjamin brought to John Lennon's songs, um, there's more people in heaven understanding Jesus, and Jesus is getting up off his throne and spending time in coffee shops and restaurants with people, developing really close and personal relationships with people that might have been in a higher realm, but had never intimately been attached to Jesus like they are now. And so Jesus really enjoying himself, and me and Benjamin and Delight the Angel also writing mostly pop songs and
Mm.
releasing them to earth, to various artists, to popular artists, to people who just play at pubs and gig in a band themselves. There's all sorts of people that are releasing songs too. And it's really exciting to do, and we're constantly waiting for popular artists to start working on an album so we can start to inject our thoughts into their mind and inject our songs into their mind.
That would be interesting, isn't it? How will you feel when people start singing the song you guys wrote in heaven
Yeah,
when they
there's a few songs that have already been released on Earth, and there's a few really popular artists that we've worked with and collaborated with without them actually knowing we're collaborating. Sometimes an artist we'll be working on a song and we'll give them like a chorus or a verse of lyrics that they'll have two verses, and they'll be working on their third verse, and we'll jump in to their mind and write the third verse, which is a really impactful verse. So some songs we're actually collaborating with the artist rather than giving them the whole song. And you may find that very interesting, listening to that from Earth, that we could be so in tune that we could hear an artist writing a song and we could actually inject our voice into their intuition and write a verse for them. But we can do that, and we are doing that. So uh, over the coming years, over the next 10 or 20 years, there's going to be a lot of songs being released that have got like some real good values from heaven in them.
Thank you, Michael. I think the most interesting thing for me is I wouldn't have thought that heaven will be given musicians that are probably not Christians, that worldly musicians, that you'll be giving them inspirations and songs. So majority will probably think the songs will be going to more towards the Christians as against the worldly musicians.
Well,
So
what worldly musicians write about love, and it says in 1 John, Matthew doesn't know the verse, but 1 John says God is love. And
mm,
so when non-Christians, worldly people are writing about love, we can write about love. We can take a former a relationship that Beyonce has. She can be writing some really troubling thoughts about that relationship, and we can bring in some really nice words and lyrics about healing and getting over that and walking away from narcissistic people and loving yourself enough to have good people around you. And we can write some good concepts about good living and love and relationships. Doesn't everything doesn't have to be Christian, you know.
mm,
Um, when you look at Christian movies, they're like 1% of the movies that come out, and half of the Christian movies are really cheesy and really Christian, and no one watches it besides Christians. Um, we need to have a broader appeal in the world rather than just Christian music.
Thank you, Michael. So from what you've just said now, we need to have a broader appeal to the world. So what can Christians learn from that?
So it so many Christians have like narrow view. They see everything through their own Christian lens, and while ever someone's being loving, they're being godlike, and so no one's love should be condemned. Even a gay male loves his partner, and some gay men and females have been together for 20 years, so they've got a real love, and you may not say it's a Christian love or an acceptable love, but it's real love, and there's good aspects in everything in the world. And as a Christian, you should bring to light and comment on the good things that you see in people's lives, regardless of their lifestyle or their addictions or what they're into. You know, there could be a mother who's a prostitute who's bringing up a young 16-year-old daughter, and she prostitutes herself every night and gets up in the morning, and before she goes to bed, being up all night, she sends her daughter to school and sleeps while the daughter's at school. She's still showing love to her daughter. She's still bringing her daughter up with good values. As far as her daughter knows, she works in an all-night bar, and her mother won't allow her to go to the bar, and she's actually being a high-priced escort, staying out all night. Um, so no matter what people's lifestyles are, no matter what they're into, there's always virtue. There's always virtuous things that people are doing. And as a Christian, rather than coming down on people and saying that they're sinners and they need to repent and say a sinner's prayer and go to your church, perhaps you could just come alongside them and love them for who they are and encourage them in their giftings, encourage them, tell them that they've got a nice dress on, or their hair looks really nice, or you really like their handbag. Don't ask them where they got their dress or where they got their handbag. That's like saying you want to go and buy the same thing for yourself. But encourage people, lift people up, and that's what we're working on in the music. And to be honest, um, Matthew doesn't listen to a lot of Christian music because it he doesn't get excited about people praising God and not obeying God.
Mm.
So a lot of Christian music is really cliche, and some of the Christian artists that Matthew really admires went into mainstream. They left Christian music like Lauren Daigle and went into mainstream music. And there was another New Zealand girl that what started at Hillsong and then went into mainstream. And Matthew really admires them because they have a broader audience and more people to listen to. And God is love, and whatever you're singing about love, people are going to understand the message.
Thank you, Michael. Have you been winning awards?
Yeah, we continue to win awards, and what's good about winning awards in heaven is it gets people to focus on your song
Mm.
and understand your song. Um, some of the love songs we're writing remind people of their life on earth and remind people of earthly life and earthly relationships. Some of the love songs help the couples in heaven relate to themselves more closely. They're all interesting songs and all helpful songs, and so we win awards. But my focus since meeting John, I've come to understand that it's good to have a song do relatively well, but on a really refined and specific and narrow subject matter, rather than having it win in the throne room in the top five. So meeting John has influenced the way I write and the way I do songs, but we do win awards. I especially love uh, having one of John's songs on the sufferings of Christ or the intimacy with Jesus. I especially like helping him get his song in the throne room in the top five.
Thank you, Michael. And how's your spiritual growth is going? How is it going at the moment?
I've really flourished since meeting John and spending time with John. John has been somewhat of a mentor to me, and he's really profound. And I feel in between mixing with Benjamin and John Lennon, I'm just on this. It's like I've entered the university of spirituality. It's higher learning. It's like several levels above me. And so sometimes they just say one sentence and I try and remember that sentence because it powerfully impacts me. So a lot of what Benjamin and John say is above my head, but I'm growing in small steps towards closer intimacy with Jesus, and um, I'm really happy to hear from Jesus that he's happy with me that I worked with John and had a whole lot of people in heaven come to understand him. He's filled with tears a couple of times talking to me face to face about how special it was for him, for me to work with John and get the subject of fellowshipping with the sufferings well known in heaven. And he's sort of stepped off his throne now and is spending a lot of time face to face with people and developing close relationships with people, which he was never able to do before. And he's so thankful to me. And it's one thing to have Jesus love me. It's another thing to have him tear up every time you speak to him, and in him being so full of thanks. How do you cope with Jesus crying and saying thank you? You know, he's done so much for us, and
Mm.
to bring him to tears, uh, and it's just like the Messiah of heaven has arrived, and he's just came and changed heaven, and and Jesus is just so happy. It's so good to see him laughing and smiling. And when he comes into the classroom and teaches the kids, he's got such fresh stories and amazing stories, and the kids are captivated. And he may be telling stories, but he's telling stories out of his own life. And hearing Jesus tell stories is just amazing. And he's very transparent, and you've understood Matthew being transparent through knowing Matthew and reading his books and watching his videos. Well, Jesus is just like 5 times more transparent. Jesus' parables in the Bible were about other people, but many of the stories he tells the children are things out of his own life. And the story's got a meaning, but the transparency is just amazing.
Thank you, Michael. Do you ever imagine that you will be where you are now, that you'll be having a lot of positive impact on Jesus' life?
No, I've always been happy just to be part of heaven. I I went through like a transformation, spending time with John and writing hit songs in heaven that really transformed heaven. It had like a really deep cleansing effect on the people of God in heaven, and um, having such an effect on Jesus' life was something that Ephesians 3:20 can do exceedingly abundantly more than you can ask or think, according to the power that works within us. With delight, the angels help. We wrote some songs that really impacted and changed heaven, and the studies attached to the songs, and the writers and the teachers and the angels that are involved in making the studies that go along with the songs. It's really impacted heaven, and it's more than I can think or dream of. I'm just so happy. I'm just so happy to make Jesus so happy. I'm happy to make John so happy. Mary Magdalene took me aside and told me what a great encouragement I'd been to Jesus, and my songs and the work I've done, and personally congratulated me and said she's never seen Jesus affected so deeply as he has been in recent months. And that really meant a lot because Mary's really close to Jesus. And yeah, thanks for your questions.
Thank you, Michael. And how is your relationship with Emmanuel going?
So I've always been drawn to children, but having Ben's son here, having your son here, gives me a special focus. And Emmanuel's really young, and he's got a good ear for music. He's gifted in music, and we allow him to write some lyrics, and he's learning the bass guitar, and he's playing some of the bass tracks on some of our tracks, and he's really getting involved. Any child that comes across me and spends time with me gets gifted musically, and God arranged it for him to have a good musical ear, and I've taken him on as he's like my son too. It's an amazing relationship, and he really admired me, my music before he met me, and he really loves being with me. He's not a fan. I um I love fans. My fans are my world, but I love people that love me for me, not because I'm a good musician. And Matthew seems to be not so understanding of me as a musician, but more just as a friend. And I prefer that. And Emmanuel looks up to me as my father's friend, his father's friend. And he treats me with respect and dignity like a son would. And I really wish my children are in heaven, and I overlook their life on earth. But having Emmanuel with me, sometimes Ben's off collaborating with other musicians and spending time in cafes and restaurants working on other musicians' lyrics. And it's just me and Emmanuel together recording and doing work together. And Ben, just like Ben trusts you with Matthew, Ben trusts me with his son. And that's not something a father would trust a pedophile with. You know, they accuse me of being a pedophile, and it's known beyond a shadow of a doubt that I never was. And Ben totally trusts me, just like he trusts Matthew with you, and he's got a lot of faith and trust in him, Ben, and I'm really pleased that he's given me like a son to nurture and discipline and train and teach. And he's got a good voice, Emmanuel, and he's sung harmonizing harmonies on some of the songs, and the people of heaven are getting used to his voice. And so not only Ben is getting attention, but Emmanuel's getting attention, but he's very humble and focused, and he does everything for the glory of God.
Oh, thank you, Michael. It's good to hear about you mentioning your children as well. So how do you feel? How do you cope with your children still on earth?
When you pray, it says in Scripture that you got to pray with faith that God's going to answer your prayer, and so I don't worry about my children. I've prayed my prayers for them to live a godly life and find God and get in a relationship with Jesus. And I just trust it to the angels and the caregivers on earth to lead them in the right path. It's really true what the Queen's saying, turn your eyes upon Jesus and the things of earth will grow strangely dim. I don't think about earth too much, only when I'm focusing on the lives of separate singers that we're going to write a song for.
Oh, that's interesting. That's very difficult to understand if you're still living on earth, to be in heaven, not to think about earth so much. But what do you think we Christians can learn from that? Christians that are still living on earth, is it possible to still be living here, but your mindset is not here? You're thinking more heaven.
Yeah, well, you've found that yourself. You've been discussing that with Matthew, that your mind is always in heaven, and Matthew's very heavenly minded, and most of his friends are from heaven. And every time he goes to sleep, he spends 20 minutes to an hour or two talking to people in heaven. So it is possible to be on earth and to be focused on the things of heaven, but rarely do people have that situation happening in their life.
Thank you. Matthew wrote a question here, but I think you've answered it. But in case if you still have anything to say about it, which is what has Jesus said recently that impacted you?
Well, Mary said something that impacted me, and Jesus has been crying and thanking me for changing people's attitudes towards him, and that's been really impactful. Um, Jesus said to me, he didn't really believe that it was possible to have so many new friends, and because of you, I've got these new friends, and so that's curious because makes you really think. Jesus being all knowing, how did he not know that this was going to happen?
Yeah.
And it just shows that you can surprise Jesus, and Jesus doesn't know everything about the future, and he's been revitalized, and he told me that my music with John Lennon has revitalized his life, and he stopped moping around and being so depressed. And it's good to see him laughing and smiling and being happy. I'm so happy that he's able to have new friends.
Thank you, Michael. Do you think the life of Matthew has surprised Jesus?
Uh, yeah, it's interesting. We may just we may just interview me in this interview today because it's drawing on. But Matthew has been used to surprise Jesus on many occasions. The fact that he's transformed heaven with these interviews, and the interviews are really your questions that you are Matthew's questions that he designed for John Lennon really opened up. You can't really say Matthew's, it's probably Bethany, his angels questions for John Lennon, really opened up John, and the questions for Bethany opened up heaven too in a remarkable way, opened up the angelic. Um, and so I told Matthew a couple of weeks before uh, today that he's like a Messiah of heaven, and heaven waited to the fullness of time. It says in Scripture that the fullness of time came, and then Jesus arrived, and heaven's been going along at this state it was in for 2,000 years. Then the fullness of time came, and Matthew arrived and started doing work on heaven. And it's really unbelievable. It's hard to believe, but it really has the effects and the ramifications of what has been said and done in heaven is really transforming the character of Jesus. And heaven had almost shut down. God was so
Mm.
angry, and Jesus was so depressed, and Holy Spirit's so overworked that heaven had, Satan had almost shut heaven down, and and it was in a precarious position. And at the right time, fresh air has come, and it's like cool breezes flowing through heaven now, and things are getting washed away that were troubling. So it's been really good to watch what's going on, and because of the effect that you and Matthew are having on heaven, there's been a lot of warfare and attack uh, coming from the enemy into both of your lives, and the enemy can only do so much. There's a line
Mm.
drawn in the sand for
Mm.
him, and he can only do so much. But he's been trying to do his best, even in the last couple of days, affecting Matthew's mood and affecting him has been part of the enemy's work, and so heaven is really surprised. And Matthew's one closest person to Jesus a couple of times in the last couple of weeks, but was unaware of it because we don't tell him everything. That heaven is so surprising that there's secrets in heaven, and so that's the first Matthew's heard of it. But yeah, we're really impressed. So if you got any other questions you want to ask away, because we're just going to make this an interview with me rather than the other two. Um, Matthew's getting tired.
Okay, Matthew's getting tired. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just about to go to John before, but Matthew, what do you think? Yeah, I wanted to ask you. Yeah, you said heaven has got secrets, so it's good for me to have some secrets as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Heaven has got. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, but you can't use that for not being transparent. Yeah, yeah. Heaven's got some things they haven't told Matthew. Like when I told Matthew that thing about Messiah, uh, that was news to him, and it was a big revelation to him, but it made so much sense and answered so many questions. Well, you could have said that was a secret of heaven, and Matthew wasn't really ready to receive that until the day that I told him. And so some things remain as secrets in heaven until the right time has come, then the secret is released. Some things just remain a mystery, like how the population of Earth got so populated when it was just Cain and Abel, and there seemed to be a whole lot of crowd of people that God didn't want to affect Cain. Um, and Where did they come from? And there's certain mysteries that remain mysteries. And yeah, that's just how God is. He's a mysterious God. Not everyone understands every facet of who he is and every facet of what he thinks. He's certainly happy with the restoration of his son and the joy that's come into his son's life, and his son making friends, and his son enjoying himself more, and rather than his fist being raised to strike the earth, it's come down. And so we're having an effect on God also, which is good to hear with my conversations with him.
That's good to know. Thank you. Thank you, Michael. So, John, sorry, Matthew, are you tired?
Yeah, so we'll just uh, we'll just finish it here, hey?
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry for that.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Ben, as well. So
Yeah.
we'll continue next time.
Yeah. Okay. So if you listened to the end, please like this video. If you've got a comment, please comment. I hope that you were happy with this, and you know that this is part of a playlist called Mentoring in the Prophetic. God bless.